What are we doing to stop William Ruto feeling that he can become another African dictator? African dictators have begun the same way Ruto is going. From Amin Dada of Uganda to Mobutu Sese Seko to Samuel Doe to Bokassa. All of them have begun by testing the constitution and acting outside the constitution. So if this was a football match or the World Cup, we actually would be now entering the round of 16 because we had preliminary matches where Zakayo has overwhelmed the country through the rule of the gun and the use of the bullet in killing our people. I note that the Kenya human rights bodies, including Article 19 and the Red Cross and all of them together today were issuing a report about the people that were killed during the protests of June 25th. And why I am talking about the round of 16 is because Ruto was elected on a false promise on every avenue and every issue. And he decided when he came into power, the first thing he would do is to finish the opposition. Kenya is a multi-party democracy as defined in Chapter 4. And in fact, when you talk about a multi-party democracy, you talk about a government, but you also talk about an opposition. And one of the reasons the Political Parties Act was amended and signed into law by former President Kenyatta, it was because we wanted coalitions to be formed before or after elections to ensure that a government, once elected, was also to face a strong opposition so that the people could get a better government. So the first round of 16, William Ruto bought individual members of parliament and the Senate. He bought and destroyed political parties, and he took over the majority Azimio had won in the National Assembly by imposing not only the leader of opposition position to leader of majority for government, both in the Senate and Parliament, but in actually taking over political parties that voted against him. So from day one, William Ruto had a disproportional amount of power, which he did not win through a will of the people or through elections. He had no mandate to the power he was exercising. He had stolen the mandate not only of government, but that of the opposition. Now, obviously, at that time, the opposition went to the streets to try to object the way in which Ruto was manhandling the opposition. They were tricked into Bomas of Kenya, where they went to watch William Ruto dance, and he danced them to sleep and formed what was called the NADCO report, which was just basically another way of buying time so that the country's passions could go down. And then the Gen Z movement came, and when it came, it took over the agenda of the country. Again, this man, the butcher of Sagoi, was able to use state force. Remember, and Kenyans keep forgetting, as we speak now, Kenya is a military state. The military state, because the KDF, which was deployed during the protest, is still deployed. No rescinding of that order has ever been done, and Kenyans will have forgotten that the military can come to the streets. But Ruto was testing. If I push the democratic needle forward and this country goes into mayhem, what can I do? State police, on top of that, I have the military, therefore I can crush despondency. Fast forwarding to the final 16, if you take Baba into the tent, bring ODM into a broad coalition government, then anything left in terms of opposition in Kenya is no longer existent. And therefore, why not let Senator Cheregai test the waters? Legwa says that this bill will not meet the threshold of the constitution, but it has got Kenyans talking about how you can extend Ruto's term to 7 years, how you can be able to extend not just him, but the term of parliament. And MPs, once they hear they can be extended, will be all lining up behind him with ODM now in bed with the government of UDA that would pass in parliament. So the question that I want to ask tonight is not really just about the Cheregai bill, But what are we doing to stop William Ruto feeling that he can become another African dictator? African dictators have begun the same way Ruto is going. From Amin Dada of Uganda to Mobutu Sese Seko to Samuel Doe to Bokassa. All of them have begun by testing the constitution and acting outside the constitution. So what I did by starting this petition, I got an able team of lawyers, Degwa Njiru, Kibe Muigai, and so on. And we began to say, let us test Zakayo in regard to him versus the people, the issue of sovereignty, so that we can be able to make the courts, cornered in one area of law that they find very difficult to get away from. What is the role of the public? What is the issue of public participation? And what is the voice of the people? And therefore, I want to congratulate the judge who entered the judgment on the KICC matter, because that is the first blood we are drawing from Zakayo's greedy veins to show that he cannot dispose of national heritage and monuments at his will. That kind of trend is what we are trying to pursue when we are pursuing the JKIA matter, to say that this is a national asset belonging to the people of Kenya, and you cannot do that. If we continue to demonstrate that and we begin to push the courts to their limits, then all these issues, whether it's a 7-year extension, whether it's the sale of JKIA, when all those issues will come back to what about the public, as was the issue of the finance bill of 2024. So I want to say, and I want to say it today without any fear of contradiction, that in the JKIA deal, which will start its hearings on October 17th of this month, coming, we are going to be testing not just the courts, we are going to be testing the country's readiness to test what is public participation. Should we come out in victory of JKIA, I see a time that the country will rise up and believe in the power of the public and believe that the public can actually triumph over Zakayo. And that is where I think this country needs to go. So I want to tell this forum today that we are going to do everything in our power to make sure we save JKIA, because in saving JKIA, we send a warning signal as we enter the quarterfinals with Zakayo that the public will not stop and the sovereignty of the Kenyan people will win and triumph over him. And what I was saying to you about why the Adani deal was an important one to start with was because, even in strategy, or let's say war, you need to be able to zero in on the enemy and get the mood, not just of the country, because even the court or the courts live within this country. And I think for me, as a tactical issue, the JKIA brought together everybody simply because of its importance as a national asset, but also because it was a profitable, working, operative parastatal, where Kenyans were not just shareholders of it, but were contributory people in making it a profitable enterprise. So not only were they taking an asset that they shouldn't sell, but they were even ignoring the contributory part that the Kenyan people play towards JKIA, number one. Number two, it was the beginning of the ones that were paving the way for Adani. The Adani deals are interrelated and interdependent insofar as he is a Gupta of Kenya. In his and we had this before with Kamlesh Patni and with Aglo Listin and other scandals before, where the state choose an operative and they begin to use him as an agent who can pay them abroad by creating shell companies. So the Adani group has created the share. Well, I am told by the lawyers we should not discuss certain things. I'm a plaintiff in this matter. So I would be careful, since my counsels are also on this space, not to tie their hands and their legs in court. But let me say just that you do not want one person to be utilized as a vehicle to be able to overtake the externalization of corruption. Let me give the example of Chicken Gate, which was really a wonderful expose of how these deals are done. They used a UK-based company, paid money externally in order to corrupt the electoral system with the old, electoral commission body. And I think the idea of Adani could have been the idea that he can be able to externalize his transactions. But because we are sub judice, I don't want to say anything more on the matter.